Now I would like to listen to John Barclay. John, your microphone. You have to open.
Could you unmute, please, John?
There we go. Can you hear me now?
Thank you.
Yes.
Yes.
All right. Thank you. Sorry about that. Thank you very much, Gabriella, and for the invitation to be part of this. And thank you very much, Joshua, for setting everything up so effectively. And thank you to my colleagues for their contributions so far. Socrates once described himself as a gadfly. He had an annoying habit of asking awkward questions to unsettle what people thought they knew. The Within Judaism movement has something of that gadfly character in relation to New Testament studies, but today I will be the gadfly. I want to do two things. First, to press for clarity in defining what we mean by within Judaism, and second, to question the binary of Jewish or Christian that runs through this new wave of scholarship. I expect you to swat me away as a gadfly, but it's my job to keep buzzing in your ear. Ever since this movement started, there's been conceptual unclarity about what is meant by within Judaism. And after 15 years in operation, I think it is reasonable to request some clarity. The indeterminacy allows all kinds of viewpoints to claim this label, despite, as we all know, stark differences between them. But without some clarity, we will continue to go round in circles. There are some within Judaism scholars who would insist that no definition should be given. Second Temple Judaism was, it is argued, a diverse, fluid, and pluriform phenomenon with no normative core of practices or beliefs. On this view, Sanders and Dunn were mistaken in trying to identify the central features of what Sanders called a common Judaism. Second Temple Judaism covers anything that Second Temple Jews did or thought, including the worship of multiple gods, the undoing of circumcision, the disregard of kashrut, etc. If a self-identifying Jew did it, it was Judaism, and no one has the right to say otherwise. On such grounds, whatever Paul said about the Torah, or whether he practiced it or not, it was a legitimate form of Judaism. He confessed himself a Jew, so anything he said or thought was within Judaism. There are two problems here. One, it was not the case in ancient Judaism that anything went. As a social entity, it mattered whether what one did or said was recognized by other Jews as Jewish. And we know of cases where Jews were regarded by other Jews as beyond the pale. I've discussed examples of that in an essay on apostasy in the Jewish diaspora. Second problem. The label within Judaism uses a spatial metaphor, within, that is literally meaningless if there is no boundary to define what is within and what is not. Indeterminacy here threatens to render the enterprise little more than rhetoric. For that reason, many within Judaism scholars do operate with some definition of what counts as within. But the criteria I read are diverse. Is this about using Jewish discourse? Is it about Jewish ethnicity? Is it about Jewish worship, Yahwism? Is it about Jewish practice? In some hands, to define Paul as within Judaism means that he must have been Torah observant, Jewish in practice and not just in discourse. It's not clear how far that would get us, as one could always claim to be Torah observant while disregarding some parts of the Torah. But my point is this: is there some content, even if minimally defined, to being within Judaism, or is there not? If there is, what is it? If there is not, the category within Judaism turns out to be what is called a floating signifier. A floating signifier is a label that means different things to different people, but is of no analytical value. My second point: a common feature of the within Judaism movement is its choice to retain, but to flip, an old binary between Christianity and Judaism. According to this binary, Christianity and Judaism are two mutually exclusive things, and the term Christianity is associated with what is not Jewish, even anti-Jewish. Thus, according to F.C. Bauer and his successors, true Pauline Christianity was from the start an effort to reject, abandon, and supersede Judaism. The strategy of the within Judaism movement is not to question this inaccurate dichotomy between Judaism and Christianity, but to flip it on its head. If Christian and Jewish are mutually exclusive categories, to say that the first Christ believers or that the New Testament texts are within Judaism is to assert that they are not Christian. I consider the reversed binary to be as historically incorrect as its original form. Let's be clear about our terms. We use the term Judaism as an etic category, that is to say, a scholarly construct that we deploy whether or not our texts use that terminology. We all think that there was a phenomenon that we can call Judaism well before two Maccabees apparently coined the term Judaismos. Likewise for the term Christian. We are entitled to use it as an etic, scholarly constructed category to refer to discourse and practice that is Christocentric, discourse and practice that takes Jesus as Messiah or Christ to be the definitive act of God in history. Just as there was what we label Judaism before two Maccabees, there were forms of Christocentrism that we're entitled to label Christian before the terms Christianos or Christianismos were coined. They did not become Christian only when those terms were invented, any more than Jewish practice became Judaism only after two Maccabees. So here's the crucial point. For the first few centuries of the Common Era, Christocentrism and Judaism, or Christian and Jewish, are not binary opposites. One could be a Christocentric Jew with beliefs and practices that we might label within Judaism, and also simultaneously a Christian in this etic sense. In that sense, however many parts of the New Testament may be judged within Judaism, if we could define that label, it would be unhistorical to deny that they are, in the etic sense, Christian at the same time, not only in retrospect and not only through their later reception. To use Christian in this etic sense requires that we refuse to adopt the old binary that Christian means not Jewish. But scholars are quite able to define their terms and to clarify what they mean. The interesting thing about this Christocentricity is that it could be discoursed and practiced both within and outside the Jewish tradition. Paul adopted it as a Jew. He called it being in Christ or of Christ, hoping, of course, Paul hoping for the salvation of all Israel. Several things changed when this Christocentrism moved socially outside the Jewish orbit. In some cases, I think it's clear, from the mid-1st century onwards. And more things changed, more radically, when this Christocentrism defined itself over against Jews and over against Judaism. But the Christocentric reconfiguration of all identities, Jewish and non-Jewish, was present already in Paul, and it continued afterwards. We have to be very precise about what we do and do not mean if we call this Christocentrism Christian, but it seems to me both unnecessary and unhistorical to deny that for all the differences over time, there is a strong continuity in Christocentric belief and practice from the very first generation of the Jesus movement into the 2nd century and beyond. Thanks for listening.
Thank you